Yes, thank you very much, everyone, for the very kind introduction to be with you this evening. It's evening time in Australia, so I've just cooked dinner for my family and told everyone to be very quiet while I talk to you tonight from my office at home. My background is as a dietitian. Thank you very much, Pamela, for that very kind introduction. I really do love our profession of nutrition and dietetics. And I think it's interesting that after 20 years working as a dietitian, I have moved for the last 10 years into being a teacher and into academia. And both my parents are teachers. And I always said, oh, I'm not going to become a teacher. And of course, sometimes that changes and you become a teacher. So I am currently at one of our national universities in Australia. We're a fairly young university and we have only been offering dietetics at our university for 3 years, but we have a long history with nutrition science. And I was previously, any of you that know Australia, at La Trobe University, which is another major university. So I have been in academia for 10 years. And what I'm really excited to talk to you about today is this area of culinary nutrition science, which is still very new for us in Australia as well. So I'm going to cover today in about 45 minutes what is culinary nutrition, bring you up to speed on some global terminology. Oh, sorry, there's an echo. Talk to you about some competencies, some culinary nutrition translation, some examples from Australia, and some resources that you might be interested in to explore further. And before I get started, I just wanted to share this photo with you from a recent trip that I took with our students to Bali, which is an island in Indonesia. And this Balinese island has very lovely, nutritious, wonderful traditional food. You can see there we're eating tempeh, which is like tofu, some wild fermented red rice, and beans. And so I very much love traditional foods and traditional diets. What I'm going to be talking to you about today is very much a Western background. Okay, thank you. So that's much better. Thank you, because I can now see everybody's hands up and questions as we go. So Pamela, please let me know if you'd like me to pause and take questions in the Q&A as we go, or at the end. Let me know what you prefer. I'm happy for you to stop me anytime if people, I could see there's a couple of people with hands up with their questions, but would you like to keep the questions till the end now, or?
Yes, we'd like to take the questions after the presentation.
Okay. All right. So thank you to those people that have their hands up. Let's leave it till the end. So as we were talking before we got our technical problems, and I apologize again, food is medicine. We're looking at a huge change in our facets. And so when we talk about culinary nutrition, you can see this small triangle here, that we're really looking at shaking up what would be a standard medical intervention. Looking at, obviously, with our growing evidence base, looking at some outcome measures, and then obviously that our governments are waking up to this idea that we can make cost savings and improve, obviously, quality of life. Next slide, please. So I think when we get to the next slide, you'll see that I'm going to be talking to you about culinary nutrition as very much a field of interprofessional practice. And when we talk about interprofessional practice, if we could have the next slide, please, Pamela.
Mine is freezing too. It's quite slow.
Yeah, that was my problem. I couldn't move. And I was getting stuck. So on the next slide, just when we get to it, I'm going to talk to you about very much that culinary nutrition is a field of interprofessional practice. And what Pamela can move the slides on when she gets a chance. So with interprofessional practice, we are not just looking at dietitians and nutritionists being interested in this space. Certainly a lot of doctors, and particularly in the US, doctors are starting to want to cook with their patients or prescribe cooking. Obviously, we have food scientists and farmers and agriculturists and other professionals that are interested as well. Still having problems, Pamela? So maybe Pamela has frozen as well. I'm so sorry, delegates. It's there's always gremlins in Teams. There we go. So we've just moved ahead to talk to you about some of the new terminology that we're finding in the field of dietetic practice. And you can let me know later if you've heard of any of these terms yet in Ghana, or those of you that are, have studied overseas. So culinary nutrition and culinary medicine we'll talk about tonight. When we actually deliver culinary nutrition, we're calling that in a teaching kitchen. I'm going to talk to you about fresh food pharmacy. So you don't go to the pharmacy for drugs or pharmaceuticals. You go maybe for food. The idea of getting a prescription for food. I'm going to talk to you about lifestyle medicine and also medically tailored meals. So if we could go through the next two slides, please, Pamela. So on what I'd like to take you through now is some of this new terminology. And as I said, this is quite a growing field of practice for us in Australia as well. Just checking that everyone can instill, yeah, great. So we have published just earlier this year a brand new paper that's open access. So if you want to, we can send the reference list to you after the session today, or you can just take a screenshot and look up this paper, which is a free open access paper. This is the main paper that I would recommend that you read. And this is myself working with other colleagues in the US and Canada to really try and define the terminology in culinary medicine and culinary nutrition. And thanks for the thumbs up that I'm getting. What we're finding is that so many people want to be involved in this space, a lot of doctors particularly, and we really need to take a leadership role as dietitians to make sure that, and nutritionists, to make sure that we are leading the way in this space. So I really encourage you to have a read of this open access paper after today's session. Next slide, please. And what I'm going to take you through on the next slide in this, out of this paper, is a framework that we have developed for interprofessional practice. And when we come to the diagram that you'll see on this next slide, which is also in that paper, it's in fine print, but you'll be able to look this up for yourself in the paper. You can see that we are defining a difference between what is culinary nutrition, which is in the center, and what is culinary medicine within the bubble around the outside. And so we're saying that culinary nutrition can be conducted by lots of different professions. It might be a chef involved in healthy cooking delivery. It might be an exercise physiologist. It might be a teacher. But when the activity is led by a health professional or designed by a health professional or involving medical nutrition therapy or health-related outcomes, that very much is what we're calling culinary medicine. So a culinary nutrition professional, you can see from the large umbrella, can be made up of many, many different types of professionals. And what we really want to see in this space is interprofessional collaboration. If you look across the top of the diagram, we can see that there will be competencies in culinary nutrition. And it's likely that the best approach will be to have a team working together. You might be working with a chef, a doctor, the dietitian, the physiotherapist, the psychologist, all working together in a team approach to actually deliver a food and nutrition outcome. And that outcome is what is on the right-hand side that you can read about in this paper. That could be just increasing somebody's food knowledge or food literacy. It might be lowering somebody's cholesterol levels or their lipid profile. It might be improving somebody's diabetes control. It might be increasing fibre intake. So there's many different ways that we can measure and look at behaviour change through these food and nutrition related outcomes. And that's obviously the core business of what we do as dietitians. Next slide, please. So just to summarise from this paper, and you'll see this, that we're defining culinary nutrition as that integration of culinary arts and nutrition science, whereas culinary medicine must be controlled, delivered, designed by a health professional. And I think that's going to be really important for us as an international profession moving forward. Everyone maybe can cook and everyone can maybe teach cooking, but it's only health professionals that can actually lead an intervention with medical nutrition therapy for these outcomes. Next slide, please. So I wanted to show you some examples next from our wonderful research partners, and I'm very jealous of the setup that you'll see on the next slide. I'm going to show you Olivia Weinstein, now Olivia Thomas, who is has been working for many years at Boston Medical Center, so Boston in the United States. And what you can see in the bottom right of your screen is that Boston Medical Center have this huge farm on the rooftop of their major city teaching hospital. And they actually have a teaching kitchen right within the hospital. And in that teaching kitchen, they offer a range of different classes. And we can show you that on the next slide, please. So Olivia has a team and they're working very closely with their inpatient population, with their outpatient population, and also in medical training to really deliver this incredible content through culinary nutrition. It first started off way back in 2001 when they were looking at delivering some food to hungry people, people with food insecurity in their local area. And that has then led up to this incredible program. So you might be coming to the hospital for your pregnancy care, for your prenatal care, and you will come and learn about the nutrition of the nutrition of pregnancy through cooking classes. You might also be in hospital for drug and alcohol rehabilitation, and you will come and do some healthy lifestyle behaviour change through cooking. You might be a teenager newly diagnosed with a teenager with type 1 diabetes needing some more education as you become more independent, and you will come and do cooking classes. So it's really amazing to see what they've been able to achieve at Boston Medical Center. Next slide, please. On the next slides, I'm going to talk to you about one of our other research partners, and this is Julia McLaren. And Julia is a Canadian dietitian. That's her there in her wonderful teaching kitchen in Canada. She is in Alberta in Canada, and she has a major teaching kitchen that is connected next to a major teaching hospital where there is also a gym. There's financial aid. It's like a major community health centre. And they offer really exciting cooking programs. If you can move to the next slide, please, Pamela. So you'll start to see on the next slide as it pops through that some of the examples I've already talked to you about from Boston. Cooking for pregnancy, healthy pregnancy, cooking to learn about the Mediterranean diet, cooking for weight loss surgery or bariatric surgery, low salt cooking if you have high blood pressure, cooking and eating challenges for people maybe that have had cancer therapy or chemotherapy. Maybe they've had cancer surgery that has affected their head and neck and their swallowing or dysphagia. So it's really interesting to see that so much of what we would do traditionally in hospital or in a private practice can be done through bringing people together. And I think one of the powerful things we're seeing is this idea of peer-to-peer interaction. Getting a group of like-minded patients together can be really powerful. That's fine. Pamela, next slide, please. So on the next slide, I also wanted to bring to your attention is that we are seeing, particularly out of the USA, a big push for more nutrition training to happen in medical education. I know in Australia that as dietitians, we sometimes get very frustrated that our medical practitioners only get a very tiny amount of nutrition training. And sometimes we're not convinced that they're always, giving the best nutrition advice. And that's why we hope that they would refer to a dietitian. But it's fantastic to see a lot of doctors and physicians, and we might have some with us tonight, are really keen to learn more about food is medicine and really understand how they can help their patients and clients. So we're starting to see this movement of bringing more doctors into the field of lifestyle medicine and actually training medical students in culinary nutrition as a way to teach them and motivate them about nutrition. Next slide, please. On the next slide, so as I said, if you're interested in this space or you're involved in medical training, on the next slide is a very good review paper that you might like to look at. It's fairly recent, just from last year. And this review was looking at how they're teaching medical students in the United States through this teaching kitchen cooking model. There's over 33 medical schools now in the United States that are teaching their students nutrition in a teaching kitchen. So I think that that's really interesting for us to see how things are going. And on the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about the idea of a teaching kitchen. I know that in COVID times, in the pandemic in Australia, during lockdown, we had to pivot and do things differently. And this is an example of this paper of how they were able to do an online cooking class and for people with diabetes and have very powerful outcomes. So it doesn't have to be a cooking in person. It can very much be a cooking online opportunity in culinary nutrition as well. And on the next slide, also wanted to bring to your attention a very good paper on the types of features of culinary nutrition programs that we're finding that can work to change behaviour. And I think was mentioned in the introduction that we need to understand more about the barriers and obviously also the things that can be quite successful in teaching people to cook. So this paper is by Lynn Fredericks, and Lynn is not a dietitian, but she works very closely with a lot of dietitians, and for over 20 years in the USA has had a big program called Family Cook Productions, and they run hands-on cooking programs for children and for teenagers, so for youth, and have done a lot of research on what works and what doesn't work. So I think that this, many of you would be really interested to have a read of this paper as well. Next slide, please. So on the next slide too, I just want to remind us as dietitians and nutritionists and as health professionals, the idea of cooking interventions, it's not just about physical health. And we touched on this already about the idea of sharing a meal together. On the next slide, you'll see that we are, of course, are very interested in things like the psychosocial benefits. We know that families that have a meal together or cook together are more connected. We know that here in my country, as people get older, they can become very lonely. There's just one slide back if you can, please, Pamela, just so that they can capture that reference. So the idea that cooking is more than just, and cooking interventions are more than just physical health. They can also improve mental health, of social connections, and more. So if we've missed that paper, I can send that through as a reference list to you later. So on this slide and the next slide, I'm just kind of trying to capture some of the summary of the evidence base. As I said, this is very much an emerging field, and we still are waiting to grow more research and grow our evidence base. So the last slide was summarising where we are at with the evidence around health professionals. And this is just a bit of a summary of what we're seeing with some participants. So the first line is about SMAs, so shared medical appointments. That's when a physician will get a group of patients with a similar condition together to give a medical or an education. And we know that that can work very well with culinary nutrition and culinary medicine. So I'll leave you with those references. And as I said, I can provide a full reference list and the slides at the end of today, so you're able to look up some of these things further. But we certainly are very much growing this evidence base. Next slide, please. In the next section, I'm just going to take you through some of the competencies that we might need to do very well in the field of culinary nutrition. Because they're changing. And in Australia, I think it's funny when we look at the competencies from the Dietitians Australia, there's hardly any mention of cooking, even though most of us, we don't eat nutrients, we eat food, and most of our food needs to be cooked. So I think it's interesting that over the time, particularly in countries like Australia, the field of nutrition science and medical nutrition therapy has evolved, but maybe we've lost some of our connection to food or cooking. And so we're trying to do that very much at my university, very much training our new dietitians to be very connected to food, to be very knowledgeable about food, and obviously to have good cooking skills. So some of the things that I don't think I learnt as a dietitian student that I wish that I had more understanding of is the food science, the flavour science. You know, what is it about particular ingredients that makes them very flavourful, and what is the science behind the food? So we did a little bit of this, but I think we need to increase our competencies in this space. Next slide, please. And on the next slide, you'll see that I'm really interested in going to conferences all around online, doing very different things. And when we get to that next slide, you'll see that I was able to participate in a conference. This is me in the top left, with a conference with the Paul Bocuse Institute in France. And this is a leading culinary school in France, but they are very interested in food as medicine as well. So I'm looking for opportunities to learn from some of the best chefs in the world, because I think that I can learn some secrets that will help me make healthier food, more delicious as well. Next slide, please. The other type of competencies we need to be aware of is we need to be experts in food, but in supply chains, in food sustainability, in procurement. I know some of you might be working in food service and you're already experts at this, but I think as nutritionists and dietitians, we can have a big power to change the way people eat, and certainly through cooking, and help protect our wonderful food supply, and think more sustainability with how we work with our clients and patients as well. Next slide, please. The other thing that we're very interested in, particularly in Australia, is keeping across some of the trends in food. And we know that there are some very popular or fad diets that go around. And certainly on our social media in Australia, a lot of people are very interested in, the latest flavour trend is that this week, is it Mexican food, or is it everyone wants to eat honey, or what is TikTok on one of our social media platforms? What are all the young people on TikTok doing? And I think this is important. In culinary nutrition, we like to see what the food trends are. We like to see what the restaurants and the chefs are doing, because maybe we can do a healthy version in our kitchens, and that will become popular with our patients and clients. Next slide, please. Some of our other competencies we want to be are very much involved in food and culture, in cultural safety, in not just the Mediterranean diet that is very popular in Western countries. We want to be very familiar. Obviously, you'll be very familiar with your local cuisine, but also if you're working with expats or people from other countries, we need to be very, very skilled, particularly in Melbourne, where I live. We have a massive multicultural population. So I could be working with people from Europe or from Africa or from Southeast Asia, or, local Indigenous people. In one day in practice, I could be seeing lots of different people. So I need to be very familiar with different cuisines and cultures. Next slide, please. And another area of competency that is really important in culinary nutrition is just to make food look beautiful. I know a lot of you, as maybe dietitians, have your own websites, and you want to maybe develop your own recipes and make them look quite beautiful. So these are some things that we're quite interested in, this idea of food styling. Now with an iPhone or a smartphone, we can take beautiful photographs. So we need to help our dietitians and nutritionists do this very well. Next slide, please, and we can jump ahead a couple of slides. This is just some examples from our student work in our kitchens. And then next slide. Another level of competency that we want to be across is to be very good at food writing, very good at nutrition communication and nutrition translation. We know that we can talk very scientifically in our area, but maybe we're not very good at writing beautifully about food. The vibrant red traditional rice. We need to use very descriptive words and get better at talking in a very beautiful way about food as well. And finally, with competencies, we're very interested in the psychology of food and how we influence people to change their behaviour. How do we make things very, extraordinary and wonderful? And I just wanted to bring to your attention, this is Professor Charles Spence. Professor Spence is from Oxford University, and he is one of the guest lecturers into our new culinary nutrition program. And he's written a book called Gastrophysics, and he does a lot of research in this space. And I'll leave you to look at that further, but we can move on to the next slide. Gastrophysics is about the whole using all your senses when you eat food, not just the taste of the food, but the sound of the food, the sight of the food. Maybe how does the food feel in your mouth? And next slide, when you can, Pamela. We're looking at things like the color of the food can actually change your enjoyment and change your behavior. Maybe food that is plated in a pink bowl, like ice cream in a pink bowl, can actually taste sweeter. So we can change some of the way that we present food to actually change behavior as well. And this is quite fascinating research. Next slide, please. So on the next slide, where we get to it, is just a famous example. Some of you might have heard of the world famous chef. We've missed over it, but that's fine. Just stay there, Pamela. Heston Blumenthal. So Professor Spence at Oxford University does some amazing work with some top chefs around the world, but I think we can learn a lot from these principles. So in this last bit of theory section, let me take you through how this might look for us in Australia as dietitians, and maybe give you some ideas for your own practice as well. On the next slide, as I mentioned, that we very much want to train our dietitians and nutritionists to be the leaders in culinary nutrition and culinary medicine. And we don't want the doctors just taking over this space. We very much are the experts in medical nutrition therapy and in culinary nutrition and medicine. So when we get to the next slide, you'll see another paper that I'm very much recommending that you take a look at, which is out of the USA, but preparing registered dietitians for leadership in culinary medicine. So any of you involved in education or maybe of supervision of dietetics students or nutritionists in Ghana, this might be something that interests you, where the future of training is going. And on the next slide, just a last bit of reading for you is around this idea that I mentioned at the beginning. It's not just going to be dietitians, it's going to be chefs and doctors and dietitians and other people all working together to design really interesting and targeted culinary nutrition programs. So this is another paper that I recommend for you to have a look at if you're interested in this space. How can we all work together and work interprofessionally in culinary nutrition? So on the next slides, I'm going to take you through some real examples from Australia and how this is working. Yes, that's fine, Pamela, the next slide. How this is working for us in Australia. So when we get to this slide, these are some of the programs that we have in Australia. On the left, top left, is a program that we have in many of our Australian schools. It's called the Kitchen Garden Foundation. And so within the elementary or the primary school, students have a garden where they learn to grow food, because many of our city kids, our families, they don't really get to see where food comes from or where food is grown. So we want them to learn about food and appreciate food. And then within this program, they have a kitchen within the school, and every class gets a chance to come and learn about cooking. But the cooking is all the way through their program. Maybe in their maths class, in their mathematics, they'll come to the kitchen and they'll learn about maths through food. It's not just about health education. They do English and other subjects learning through food. On the next slide, this one, thank you, Pamela. These are myself in the kitchen with some dietitians who are running a big program in Australia for people with a disability. So maybe people with an intellectual disability who would normally just be given their food, they're being taught to cook through a disability program. This is another program example in Australia where this dietitian is working with a free program for teenagers or young people aged 18 to 25 to learn how to cook on a budget, because we're finding, just like all around the world, and obviously you have different issues in your obviously food insecurity than we have, but even in a country like Australia, a very rich country like Australia, we still have people that go hungry, and we still have people that need to learn how to budget with their food. So this is another example of that type of program. On the next slide, there's also really wonderful dietitians that work with our Indigenous population, the Australian Aboriginal population. So this is Tracy, who's actually an Indigenous dietitian, helping and doing an online cooking class with some traditional ingredients and helping people learn about Indigenous culture and healthy eating this way. On the next slide is an example of one of my friends, a dietitian called Diana, who is in Pennsylvania in the United States. And I just wanted to show you this because it's an idea of this online cooking classes coming to life as quite a strong business. So Diana and her partner use Facebook, the social media platform, as their platform, and when you see it on the next slide, you'll see that Deanna is able to run live cooking shows from her kitchen at home, inviting people in to join with her live just using Facebook. So I think that that's another fantastic tool. If we can get to that when we get to the slides. I think maybe the slides are frozen again for Pamela, so I'm sorry about that. On the last few slides, I'm going to, as we flip through, I'm also going to talk to you about dietitians working within food industry, so developing meals. I mentioned to you the idea of medically tailored meals. Medically tailored meals might be when your patients leave hospital. In Australia, it's being trialled now that they will actually get a meal kit delivered every day to their home for their particular medical condition. So that might be for kidney disease or for diabetes, that you can actually get a designed meal, a medically tailored meal. So that's, just one back if you can, Pamela. If not, don't worry, just keep it there. So that idea of medically tailored meals. Back, if you could go back, that would be amazing. I'm not sure if you can. Yeah, one more back. Maybe not. It keeps freezing us. We'll stay here if we can. Yeah, so this is Kim DeCallis, a dietitian that works at one of our major food companies. So this idea that these meals might be developed and then provided. So this was the Indigenous one. The next slide is Deanna, my American friend. I think it freezes, so poor Pamela has to flip back. Here we go. Here's Deanna. Join us on Facebook Live. Join us and we cook along and we do our recipe. Here's the medically tailored meals. And on the next slide, even the idea of using technology. So these are two dietitians in Australia that have developed an app to teach people cooking through technology. So I think this will very much be part of our future as well. And in Australia, on this slide, we are now seeing the trial, just like I showed you in Boston in America, but we're now seeing some of our hospitals trialing cooking sessions here for teenagers with type 1 diabetes. So I'm really interested to see how this pilot evolved and the research that's coming out. As I said, this is a very new field in Australia for us as well. And then next slide. You'll see that our ageing population is very much a challenge in Australia as well. And on the next slide, we're talking just about dietitians working in aged care and in residential care with our elderly populations. And there is a lot of talk about working in this space with the chefs and the cooks, maybe designing the dining room differently to support people. So it's been amazing tonight. I'm just going to take you through, I've got about 6 or 7 slides, really just, and that's fine, Pamela, to move ahead, with some resources to get you started. Because we certainly do know that culinary nutrition and culinary medicine is globally becoming a very new field of practice. And I would invite you all, and we can send this link around, Patrick, to delegates afterwards if you need to. We have, if anyone is using LinkedIn, the social media platform LinkedIn, we have a new community of practice where we're sharing information on culinary nutrition. So I invite you all. You're very welcome to just to click follow and to join along and join the discussion with us. We post all the time. We would love to have you. So that's one resource that you can get started with. On the next slide, I recently wanted to bring to your attention that there is a very good resource in Australia called Dietitian Connection, and they have some fantastic podcasts. And I recently did a podcast talking about the scoop on culinary nutrition. So you can see in the bottom left corner, that's if you look, Google Dietitian Connection website, they have some amazing podcasts. And a friend of mine, a dietitian in Australia, is doing a really good job with free education for dietitians and nutritionists. So you might want to have a listen to that as well. On the next slide, I wanted to also bring to your attention one of the major organizations that is working in culinary nutrition in the United States is called the Teaching Kitchen Collaborative. And so they have now a research conference every year and then a symposium on the alternate year. So the Teaching Kitchen research that's published every year out of this conference might be something that you're interested in. So, and there's some very good resources on, you can see on the top there, the Teaching Kitchen Collaborative website. They have some free resources about setting up a teaching kitchen. A lot of the research that I've been talking to you about tonight is in the resources, in their research papers. So you can have a look for those as well. And finally, on the next slide, I do have to tell you about our wonderful course that is 3 years old. So we have developed a postgraduate course for nutritionists and dietitians, but also for doctors and for chefs, called the Graduate Certificate in Culinary Nutrition Science. And so this is running in Australia, in Sydney and in Melbourne. And if you just flip through the next 2 slides, Pamela, you'll see some examples of all our students coming to study with us over the last 3 years. Here we all are having a beautiful lunch together in the kitchens. Here we are doing some sensory science and understanding the flavour of the recipes and the food we've tested. And on the final slide, you'll see some more information. And next year in 2025, we are launching our program fully online. So we will have some short courses and some cooking courses in culinary nutrition that you can do fully online from Ghana or from other countries. And you will do the cooking in your home kitchen and join online with us and learn about how to run culinary nutrition programs yourself. So if that interests anyone, you're very welcome to email me, or in the future, please reach out and we can have a Zoom meeting and discuss that further. So thank you so much, moderator. We had some technical difficulties tonight, but I thank everyone for staying on. Culinary nutrition is a really exciting field, and my goal tonight was to give you a taste of what's coming. And if you missed any of the research papers or the references tonight, I'm very happy for Patrick to share the slides with you, or to make sure that we can send you a reference list. And I'm happy to take some questions as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so very much, Emma. It was a very insightful presentation, I can say.
Thank you, Pamela. And I hope it's valuable too, because I appreciate our countries are very different. And
Yes,
but
it is.
Yeah, I understand, of course, that you have just as many Western diet issues as you have developing, country issues as well. So yes, I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, culinary nutrition is also emerging in Ghana, just as it is in Australia, like you said. So there's so much to learn as we evolve.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I find in my 30-year career that I have, the older I get, everybody, I feel the less I know about nutrition science. There's just so much that we still don't really understand about digestion, about the mind and gut connection, about the gut microbiome. There's so much we still don't understand about nutrition science, but I do believe in the power of cooking, and I certainly believe in the power of sharing a meal, and I really love educating people through cooking. I think it's a wonderful way for us to embrace. Yeah.
Right. So the floor is open for questions now. It's open for questions, but before anything, I have one question here for you, Emma.
Sure.
Someone is asking, what is the relationship between the study of home economics and dietetics? Considering the current trends in dietetics, the question is, can one with a high school certificate in home economics successfully practice as a clinical dietitian?
Yes, so certainly I can tell you about Australia, and please jump in, Pamela, and assist me with what happens in your country. But in Australia, home economics is not as popular as it was many years ago, but we still have wonderful home economists, and most of them work in our secondary schools as teachers. And so they're often teaching our high school students programs in food science, in food studies, and in cooking. And so that's a profession that is popular many years ago and probably less popular now, but I still very much value their role. It would be obviously a very different pathway to study to become a dietitian in Australia. But what we want to do is home economists are very skilled at teaching cooking and very skilled at behaviour change in some ways. They just don't have all the medical nutrition therapy understanding. So what we want to do is work with the home economists. If you're a dietitian, find a great home economist, find a great chef, design the program together, because they probably are very skilled at teaching cooking. And probably as dietitians, we can very much learn from them. And if we work interprofessionally and work together to design the program, maybe you as the dietitian can come in for parts of the program and they can deliver other parts of the program that is quite acceptable within the field of culinary nutrition and culinary medicine. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's fine. Thank you. So we have some people, some hands up. Abdul Ibrahim. Please, if you can hear me, unmute and ask a question. Abdul.
Good afternoon. Sorry, good morning.
Right. Good morning.
Please, please, when Mrs. Emma started, I was having challenges with my screen here. She was
Oh,
speaking all right, but on my screen I was not getting the presentation. So I wanted to know whether it's dinner problem or it's only from my side. But I realized that it was a dinner problem, so I'm okay. That's why I raised my hand.
Oh,
okay.
thank you, Abdul. Thanks for
Okay.
letting us
So
know. We did have some big technical difficulties at the beginning, but we jumped back on. So hopefully you didn't miss too much. Thank you for that.
No, you're welcome.
Pearl
Thank you.
Bansanumo. Please, Pearl, you can ask a question now.
Good morning, Madam Emma. Thank you for the presentation. I really enjoy it.
Thank you,
I pray
Pearl.
Ghana will get there soon. As my sister said, we are on the way anyway, but I pray one day we'll get there fully. Now, my question is, if you have a different ethnic group background coming to the facility, how do we demonstrate to meet each one's need?
Yes.
Since we have varied ethnic group background. And
Yes.
also, do you have a specific day that you do the demonstration or the teaching lesson? Or it is done for both inpatients and outpatients on daily
Yes.
basis?
Yes. Thank you, Pearl. So I can
And
talk to you first about the cultural differences. So in Australia, we have many, many, many different cultures, but we also have popular food. So people still like burgers and pizzas and tacos and common foods. So we might do, like, if it's a mixed migrant group, lots of different cultures, we might do a pizza that allows you to put different flavors, different toppings, and talk about a healthier pizza for, diabetes. Controlling the carbohydrates, having low glycemic index, having whole grains, having lots of vegetables on top. So sometimes the class is adaptable to everybody, but many times we might also offer the class to a particular migrant group in Australia. So it might be for refugees or migrants from Ethiopia, who we invite them through their own community. And we like to what's called co-design. We like to bring that group in. We might actually ask the participants to help design the program with us, bring in their favorite recipes, share with each other. So we can still provide the nutrition education, but we do it in a way that's culturally safe and culturally appropriate for them. So that would be my consideration, is really, making it work in two different ways. With the teaching kitchen, we are the same, Pearl, as you. In Australia, we don't have hospitals yet that are doing this. We have one or two hospitals that are piloting this. In America, in the teaching kitchen that I showed you at Boston Medical Center, Olivia has a team of dietitians, and there are classes going on nearly every day in that teaching kitchen. So it might be a class for inpatients, it might be a class for the medical students, sometimes it's a class for the dentistry students, sometimes it's a class for outpatients that are coming to a diabetes clinic or an outpatient clinic. So their kitchen is used nearly every day. But as I showed you on that timeline, they started their program right back in 2001. So it's over 20 years that they've been growing and growing their culinary nutrition program. So they're quite advanced, and we're not anywhere near that yet in Australia. What we have just invested in at my university is we have bought pots and pans and kitchen equipment that we hope to use as a mobile kitchen. We hope to be able to put it in boxes and take it around to community centres that don't have a kitchen, and take our dietetic students that are doing their placement, take our kitchen as a mobile kitchen around to community groups and run interventions that way. That's, for us, is the first stage, because we can't afford to build a huge massive kitchen just yet either. So I hope
All
that
right.
answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you. And secondly, please, the funding, who sponsored you? Did the patients pay, or you have a sponsorship? Since this one involves a lot, you have to buy the
Yes.
ingredients.
Yes.
Did they pay
Yes.
for it?
So
You
so
had a
we have a combination. So we're looking for a grant from our government. So, and part of that will be a research grant to make sure that we are effective in the program. We will also look to some of our food industry for sponsorship of the food, so as a donation to the program. And in some cases, the participants, as part of our medical funding, so our health funding, will be able to claim through the government health funding, through Medicare. So in Australia, obviously, when you see a dietitian, you can get that funded through the government, through Medicare. And we're looking at ways that you could come to a group nutrition education that is, it's only for a very few diseases at the moment. For existing cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, there's only a certain number of groups that will allow it. But you can run cooking as a group nutrition education with government Medicare funding as well. So the funding is very complex and coming from lots of different areas that we have to put together a business case, first of all, to try and build the program and make it sustainable.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay. Yakubu Hassana. Please, you can unmute and say, ask your question. Yakubu Hassana. Okay, I'm not sure Yakubu is hearing me.
That's okay.
Okay. Emma, we would like to thank you so much for making out time for us. Your presentation has been very insightful, and we look forward for more.
Thank you very much, Pamela, and very much for the opportunity to speak to you. And as I said, I'm very happy to follow up with any information. And if anyone would like to talk to me about maybe doing some little study with us, we would love to welcome you. You can do it online from Ghana. We would obviously love to welcome you to Australia as well. But if I can help any practitioners with any further follow-up or information, I'm very happy to do that. I'm very interested in growing culinary nutrition as a field of practice.
All right. Before you go, I've seen one hand up. I don't know if you can take that.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so Benedict Aniku, you can please come on. Hello, Benedict. Benedict.
Hello.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, greetings from Ghana. I'm a officer from Ghana with the Ghana Health Service, and I must appreciate this very presentation. It's similar to what we do here in Ghana called the food demonstrations we do. Some facilities do it, but at the district level, it is being done. I know some of my nutrition officers are very much aware of it, and I appreciate the presentation. If you put it up about the 4-star diet, trying to encourage our clients on the availability of food they have in their community, I think we can go a very long way to make culinary nutrition a success. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Benedict. That's very kind. Yes, I mean, I think that, thank you. That's a very kind comment. I think that's where the difference is that, you know, obviously as a very westernized country, we are losing our cooking skills. Our young people are losing some of these skills, and we hope that we don't, you know, cooking doesn't just become a hobby. You know, we're very worried about food literacy and food knowledge and cooking skills. So, but I would imagine that there's wonderful community work being done in Ghana where people are still having to cook. It's part of their livelihood. It's part of daily life. But we're losing that in Australia and in other Western countries. So it's very interesting to see what will happen in the future.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Benedict. We have Elikem Moni. Elikem, please, if you can hear me, kindly unmute.
Hello, good. Thank you for your presentation. I didn't quite get the university you were talking about, where you are now. And is it the course that is offered there? Is it just about culinary dietetics, or is a whole course, a different course on its own? Probably we are interested and want to apply. Thank you.
Thanks, Elikem. I think I understood your question. You might have to repeat it for me. So, my university is Australian Catholic University, and our course is the graduate certificate. So, in culinary nutrition. So it's designed for any health professional or for chefs to come back. It's only 4 university subjects, a graduate certificate. So it's to come back almost like professional development and to learn. You're already a dietitian, but you want to learn more about culinary nutrition. But at my university, we also have a Bachelor of Nutrition Science degree that I teach into, and we have the Masters of Dietetic Practice, and we have honours, and we have PhD programs. So we offer the whole of nutrition training at my university. But I was talking to you tonight just about the graduate certificate for further professional development that might interest some dietitians or nutritionists or doctors. Does that answer your question?
Yes, please. Yes, please. So it's actually a master's program, right?
No, so it's called a graduate certificate, and that is a graduate course, but it's only 4 subjects. So it's designed to be more for professional development. It's a university qualification, but you have to have already completed like a bachelor's degree before you come and do it. And a lot of people have already got a master's as a dietitian, and they're coming to do this course as extra professional development. But at my university, we also train dietitians, and we also have a master's of dietetic practice as well.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Alikim. We have one
A
last.
follow-up question, please.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay,
A follow-up
Pearl, you can
question.
go. Or Alikim.
The first slide was talking about extra virgin coconut olive oil being used on heat. In our local setting here, we use the extra virgin coconut oil. So I wanted to find out if that one also can be used in cooking. Thank you.
Extra virgin coconut oil or olive oil, did you say? Coconut?
Your first slide was talking about extra virgin olive oil.
Yes.
Yes, but here in our setting, we have the extra virgin coconut oil, and we don't allow clients to use it on heat. I wanted to find out if it's the same principle.
Yes. So what we understand, Elikim, about different cooking oils is some of the science we got a little bit wrong for a while. We used to say if there was the high smoke point that you shouldn't be frying with these oils. But with our extra virgin olive oil in Australia, it is so fresh and it has a very high free fatty acid content. And the free fatty acid content actually protects the oil, and you can raise it to a high temperature, and it's not oxidizing. It's still a very stable oil if it's fresh, extra virgin olive oil. And when I've been to Bali recently in Indonesia on our student trip, their main oil is extra virgin coconut oil, so it's very similar to Ghana. And they make it fresh in the village every few days, and cook it in the pot. And that is probably something that we would say that you could cook with at high heat because it's fresh and it will have a high free fatty acid content that will protect the oil from the heat. But if it's a processed cooking oil and it's an older shelf life, if the cooking oil is old, that it loses that free fatty acid content. So I'm not exactly sure of the processing and the oil in Ghana, but I do know that our experience in Australia and in Bali is that virgin fresh oils can behave a lot differently than has happened in a lot of the research. So a lot of the research has been done on more industrial processed oils, and they're not the same as what's produced traditionally. So it's something we might need to look into a little bit further.
Thank you.
So thanks, Pamela. I think
we still have some more hands up. Daniel, Pearl Bansa, or Francisca Intifo. Pearl, please, you have the floor.
I want to play with Emma to kindly share the website. If somebody wants to apply to the school, give it to our leader so that they'll post it on our page.
Of course.
The person can apply. Thank you.
Yes, I'd be very happy to do that. Or we're still finalising the online program for next year, but I can send you the early information, and once we have all of our dates, I would be very happy to talk to you again or send some more information. No problem.
All right. Akosia Asare. Akosia.
Please, Akosia's question has been answered. We're actually in the same office.
Okay.
She was
All right.
she wanted to ask about the cooking oil.
Okay. So Ado Daniel. All right. In the absence of that, Emma, please, thank you so much. We understand that it's past 9 actually in Australia right now, 9 p.m.
It's
And you've been with us
9:22.
22.
Hello.
Wow. Hello. Okay,
My hand was
Emma.
up. I'm Francisca.
That's the last one, please, Francisca.
Okay, sure. I was having a bit difficulty, so I couldn't listen well. But along the line, I heard Ma'am Emma giving some insightful sites for information purposes about a podcast, sorry, and some YouTube channels. I didn't really get that part. So if she could repeat that again, or it can be shared to the facilitator so that we can get access to those sites for further information.
Yes, absolutely, Francesca. And I know if anyone missed any information tonight, you can please contact the host, and I'll make sure that all the information that you may have missed, any of the links or references, I'm happy to provide again. We can do that in the follow-up. There was maybe some YouTube, but I was talking about the dietitians Diana in the USA that uses Facebook Live as part of her cooking program for her private practice. But again, if you ask the moderators and your hosts, I'll be very happy to follow up with information after this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. It's been wonderful with you. It's been wonderful. God bless you for your time.
No, I'm very, very, very. I love all dietitians and nutritionists, and you. I think we all do a wonderful work, no matter what country we're in. Face, and we all have the same passion. So honestly, it's my great honor to be with you tonight. I do apologize for the technical problems, but I think with the recording, then we should have everything all together. And I would love to come back and speak to you again in the future.
Sure. We'd like to have you too. Thank you so much.
Thank
have
you
a
again.
good night there.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
All right.
Good night. Good night.